to this regularly scheduled planning board meeting for the city of Waterville. This is the most people we've had in attendance in a very long time, so it's very exciting. So we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will just remind members of the public, if you want to speak, just to come up to the microphone so that we can hear you. And approval of the minutes for the December 14th meeting. We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. So we'll do a roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Cassie?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 6 and 1 abstention.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item number 2. Disclosure of conflicts of interest. Does anybody on the board have a conflict that they would like to bring up, or any of the votes or discussions tonight?
My name is on one of the signatures on the petition for stadium lights.
Okay,
Just in
All
case
right.
that comes up.
so where it's just a discussion and,
I don't see any conflict.
okay. Okay. Is everybody on the board comfortable with that? Okay, moving on then. Item number 3. Waterville Public Schools is requesting a final plan review for the 5,000 square foot classroom addition to the Mitchell School at 58 Drummond Ave. This review is in accordance with Article 7 of the Site Plan Review Ordinance. Do we have Jeff on?
Good evening. Good evening. This is Jeff.
Hi, Jeff. Welcome.
Thank you. You want me to go ahead and do a little presentation of
Yeah,
what we're doing? Okay.
go ahead and do that, and then we'll move on to findings and facts when you're ready.
Okay, very good. Just quickly, a reminder, I'm going to share my screen here. This is what we were looking at a couple months ago when I presented this. This is an expansion on the Mitchell School. And so you can see in this picture, I've got Mitchell School here, and then the Educare building is over on the right, or on the left, I'm sorry. So this, we're just connecting, replacing this connecting corridor that they had between the two facilities with another building. And this is going to house a couple more classrooms for the kindergarten. So that's all we're really looking at there. This is a little more like the civil engineering plan that goes with this. Shows we've got some stormwater routing underneath the building to connect into existing structures over here. Essentially the same plan that I had a couple months ago when we first presented this. The walkways are kind of curved around like this to provide ADA access to the entrance here. And, we're doing, maintaining the existing stormwater system that serves the Educare facility is also going to serve this with the stormwater going down to a pond on the other side of the parking lot. So there's nothing new there. We've worked with the water department and sewer department and are pretty well worked out. We've got a couple things to work out with the water department as far as how this is going to be served, but we have a meeting scheduled next week to do this. But this is essentially the plan we'd like to do, and I guess I'd be happy to entertain any questions if you have some.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Oh, Bruce.
Oh, Bruce, sorry.
He's muted.
You're muted, Bruce. Told you.
Yeah, thank you. Raising the hand and everything. Thank you. And I might have missed it when he mentioned it, but what is the timing on this project again?
They're hoping to begin early next spring. The tentative date right now is March, but we're still waiting on DEP permits. Those were filed back in October. So we still got a little lead time before we expect those permits back. Hopefully they'll be here in a couple months.
So if they started, March, April, when would they expect to be completed?
I am not 100% sure that that's going to be completed in time for the fall semester. That's a big question at this point. There's still a lot of other issues that are kind of out there. So some of it has to do with the supply chain problems that we're having for materials. So I would not commit to that. That's something you'd have to talk to the school department. I'm sorry.
Right, and I mean, that's what I was kind of, I'm sure that the hope would be on everybody's part, but there's not much control over some things, such as supplies and stuff, but, okay, so it's unknown at this time. It depends on a lot of things.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other
That's it.
questions? Okay, we can move on to findings and facts. Is that okay with you, Jeff?
I'm happy to do that.
Okay.
David, would you mind being our scribe?
So number one, the development will not result in undue water or air pollution on or off the site. And then, Jeff, there's a couple things that the city engineer had listed, whether or not the development is within the floodplain or shoreline zone. Ability of soil types to adequately support waste disposal, slope of the land, and capacity of streams for disposal of effluents. Did you see that letter?
I noticed it in the conditions
Yeah.
here. I can address those now if you'd like.
Okay,
or,
sure.
We're connecting the sewer into the existing sewer, and there's no increase in the amount of flow because we're just serving the same number of students we did before. They'll just be spread out in a couple additional classrooms. Capacity for streams and for disposal of effluents, that's stormwater, I would imagine. And so we're addressing that by running all the stormwater from the new facility into the existing wet pond that's serving Educare. Yeah, I do not believe it's in the floodplain of shoreline because it's attached to the existing school, and I don't believe it is.
Okay. Great, so the answer to number one?
It's true.
Okay. Number two, sufficient water available for reasonable foreseeable needs of the development, including but not limited to potable water for fire control.
That's true.
Okay. Number three, will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water.
That's true.
Okay. Number four, the development will not cause unreasonable congestion, unsafe conditions with respect to the use of the highways or public roads existing or proposed both on or off site.
That's true.
Okay. Number five, the development will provide for adequate solid waste disposal.
Yes, true.
Number six, the development will not cause an unreasonable burden on the ability of the municipality to dispose of sewage.
That's true.
Number seven, the development will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area, aesthetics, historic sites, or rare and irreplaceable natural areas, or any public rights of physical or visual access to the shoreline.
This is true.
Number eight, the development is in conformance with zoning.
True.
And number nine, the developer has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards.
True.
Hope so. Since it's the city. Water, the fire, so additional conditions we have for water. Fire service for addition to the Mitchell School must connect, as required to KWD. I'm assuming that's what you want to talk to them about in your meeting.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. And then the storm drainage system, an amendment to the DEP stormwater management plan is, permit is required, which is what you're waiting on?
Correct.
Okay. And, still waiting on the letter of approval from the fire chief. So as soon as you have those things, you're a go. I will entertain a motion to accept the findings and facts.
Seconded.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion by Hillary and a second by Bruce. Any further discussion? Any discussion from the public? Okay, we'll take a vote. Bruce,
Yes.
Hillary,
Yes.
April,
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom
Yes.
and Cassie.
Yes.
All right, thank you, Jeff.
Thank you very much, folks. Have a great evening. Stay warm.
You too. Okay, item number 4. Oh, thank you. I still have that. Thank you. Kennebec Water District is requesting preliminary and final plan review for Business Operations Center constructed at 131 Drummond Ave. This review is in accordance with Articles 8 and 9 of the Site Plan Review and Subdivision Ordinance. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would, yeah, if you don't mind.
Hang on. Did you pass that other one down for them to sign?
Am I allowed to say, make a motion to approve number?
Oh, if you want to, sure.
Does it ever happen?
Not yet. Thank you.
Yeah. Sure.
The chair, Chris?
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, the floor is all yours. Great idea.
Okay, good evening. My name is Roger Kraus. I'm the general manager of the Kennebec Water District, and I appreciate the opportunity for us to be in front of the planning board here to discuss our project on Drummond Avenue. With us tonight, Nicole Rogers with SMRT. She's our lead architect, project manager. Owens McCullough with Sebago Technics, and Chris Taylor is behind the scenes here working our PowerPoint presentation. He's also with Sebago Technics. Also in the audience is Mike Talbot. He's one of our trustees, our longest serving trustee, I think, and a familiar face here in the city of Waterville. So just to, I guess that's our first slide. We're on Drummond Avenue, just kind of across from Arbo's towing and storage there. So if we go to the next slide, here's the little project site map that shows where we're going to be locating this new facility. So just to give a little history, we were in front of the planning board last May and gave some preliminary information about where we were going, but I'll just recap some of that with our next slide. So we've been between Cool Street and South Street, our facilities there since 1878. The district was formed in 1899, but the predecessor water companies started pulling water from the Messalonskee Stream in somewhere around 1878. So 145 years almost we've been on that site, but the site is just inadequate for our needs going forward, and it has been inadequate for some period of time. So our goal is to meet our operational needs, a larger facility that will be able to house our vehicles and construction equipment. We have our business office on Cool Street, and our operations facility on South Street. We'll sell the Cool Street facility. South Street, on the edge of South Street and Western Avenue, is our Western Avenue pump station, which pumps all the water that comes from our treatment plant in Vassalboro. That building will remain there, so we're going to have a presence on South Street indefinitely. So we're not abandoning that site completely, although we may sell some of that property at some point in the future. But the Cool Street property we will sell and completely leave that part of the site. So I guess that's it. I mean, as you can see, we're kind of on this bend in the oxbow, and that's kind of why we're of the stream there. That's why we're kind of constrained on future development there. Very limited on that site. So I'm going to turn some time over to Owens, and he's going to recap the project.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Owens McCullough, civil engineer with Sebago Technics, here tonight on behalf of the Kennebec Water District. What you have in front of you is the site plan for the project off of Drummond Avenue. The parcel is about 15.5 acres. That parcel was actually a conglomerate of a number of parcels that Kennebec Water District acquired. So we have 15.49 acres in total size. The main building is a 20,000 square foot administration and operations building. Within that building will be the business operations area, and then there'll be storage equipment, keeping their vehicles under cover. Right now most of their vehicles have to sit outside. It's just not very efficient. There'll be a wash bay area in there. There'll be a water fill at the end of the building, far into the building, so pull trucks or folks that need water for dust control, that sort of thing, they would have access to come into the site and get the water there. We have 2 points of access coming into the site, and that's really to separate the operations and the business side. So customers that would come in for the business side, vendors, deliveries, small deliveries, FedEx, that sort of thing, would come in on the northerly entrance, and that entrance would bring them right up to the parking lot, right up to the front of the building where they could go into the business office. We will have both of those entrances will be gated. You'll see a small little sort of bump out just before it comes into the main site. That's a couple of parking spaces with a drop box for customers who want to drop their bills off after hours. So there are still some folks that prefer to physically bring their bills to the site. So there'll be a drop box there for that to happen. And then the site will be gated. We did originally had a fence around the entire site, but and that may happen someday, but right now we don't really see the need to fence the entire site, just to block the gates coming up into the site. Also on the site, there'll be an 8,000 square foot building for gravel and other materials. So in their day-to-day operations, especially in wintertime when it's rain and snow and cold like this, it's better to have that material under cover. Right now, they actually cover it with a polytarp, and that's not very effective. It tends to still freeze, and then it's harder for them when they have to have a water line break, or they have to get out there. They need gravel or cold patch or whatever stone or whatever they need to repair that. That will now be undercover in this 8,000 square foot building. There'll be bins inside the building to separate it for ease of access on the site. There's a 15,000 square foot exterior pipe yard and material storage. That's that cross-hatched area that is, let's see if this works. Nope, that's not gonna work. This cross-hatched area right there. And that area is just lay down for equipment, materials, piping, so that when they have a project that they need to take care of, they have a spot to lay that out, get it organized, load up, and take those materials out into the field. There's also a wet soils area, which is right here. The wet soils, when they excavate for pipe, oftentimes they'll use like a vac truck or hydraulic methods to excavate the soils. Those soils come out very saturated with water, so we need a place to put those. Right now, down on their other site, they kind of go on a paved area and the water kind of runs all over. This site will have a concrete pad with a slope to it so that it contains the water. The water will run through a gravel underdrain system as it dewaters and decants into a pool to separate out the settleable solids, and then it'll go into our stormwater wet pond. So it's a much safer, more appropriate way from a stormwater pollution provision to do that. So that's built into the project. We have 43 parking spaces. The town engineer was correct in his memo. There's not 50, there's 43 parking spaces. At one point, we had contemplated 50, and somehow that got carried over. But there are 43 spaces on site. That will accommodate for the Board of Trustees when they have meetings. That'll accommodate for their staff, and that'll accommodate for visitors coming into the site. And we've clustered those parking areas around the business office side of the site. There's also a 2,000 square foot cold storage. It's likely to be tempered, right? We're going to keep it as cold. Okay. At one point, we were going to maybe put a little heat into it, but it's cold storage. And so expensive things like pipes and valves and hydrants and things that are very temperamental to be left outside in the snow and cold, those will go inside that building. Those things are costly, and it's better to keep them under cover. Right now, a lot of it goes outside, so this is really an added benefit for the district. There's a area showed down here on the lower end, and it's not proposed to go in now, but we're seeking to get it approved, is a potential for a small fueling area. That would be an above ground, probably a 3,000 gallon tank split between diesel and gas. We're not proposing to do it now, but there is some thought that at some point it may be worthwhile to have their trucks be able to fuel on site. And that's built into the plan. We submitted an SPCC plan to the Maine DEP. All of that would follow all of those appropriate protocols. It's a small fueling area as compared to a gas station, which has like 20,000 gallon underground storage tank. This is all above ground, and it's a fairly small tank, but it's built for the future of it. Served by public water and sewer to the site. Interesting story, when we were looking for sites, it was very important to try to find a place for public water. I think Roger would prefer that they serve themselves. And I can promise you, we got a capacity letter from the water district.
I see that.
So, a great project on that. The total developed area is about 10.88 acres in size. The pavement and buildings cover about 5 acres of area. Stormwater will be all collected in subsurface, in catch basins and subsurface piping, and it'll be conveyed to the wet pond. That's this blue wet pond in the front. That wet pond treats 95%, at least 95% of the paved and impervious areas, and 80% of the landscaped areas. That meets the DEP Chapter 500 requirements for the project. We have also filed a Site Location of Development Act permit with the Maine DEP. I think Ann has a lovely copy of the big book. That was filed back in November with the Maine DEP. That is because we will have more than 3 acres of non-revegetated surface, so we had to get a site law permit. Again, that is in process and being reviewed. We expect, the DEP has been, they're doing the best they can. They really are. They got some good staff, but between solar projects and other projects, they've gotten pretty backed up in the DEP. They've accepted our application. They're processing it. They're trying to do the best to work through it. We're hopeful that by the spring we'll get an approval so that we can begin construction in the summer. It would be great to be able to start construction in the spring so that we can get foundations and buildings while the weather cooperates with us. But we'll really be at the beckon of the DEP working through the process. And I've talked to the project manager and the engineer, and they're doing the best they can to get through it. And we'll get there. There's also what they call a Natural Resources Protection Act permit on the site, and that permit is because we are impacting some wetlands on the property. We did map the wetlands. We actually had the DEP out there. I think folks from the Board of Trustees walked the site with us, and we took a look at it, and we had the DEP out. They reviewed the wetlands. We are impacting enough wetlands that the district will end up paying into the in lieu fee program once we get through the process. I don't remember the exact amount. I'm sure Roger does, because it's a fairly substantive amount, but that's part of the whole process we go through on the site. That NRPA application is being processed simultaneously with the site law permit. They do them together and they'd be issued at the same time. So we're hopeful that we can get into construction in the spring. Construction will probably take 14, 15 months. So we'd be looking for completion in 2023 and occupancy at that time. So it's pretty exciting. This has been a process that we've spent a lot of time working through, and I think we're there. And the fun part, Nicole gets to talk to, which is the next couple slides, which is the building. This site has a couple of innovative things, some very energy sustainable approaches to it. There's going to be a geothermal system for heating and cooling the building. Nicole and I worked on one for the town of Orono when they did their public works building. They have geothermal in their site. It's a closed loop system, very efficient for heating and cooling the building, and the district's very is committed to sustainability. But I already crossed over from civil to architecture, so I'm going to stop and let Nicole talk.
Thanks, Owens. I'm Nicole Rogers, architect with SMRT. So we have here on the screen a couple of renderings for you. So I think one of the big components of this project was consolidating the administration and operations under one roof, because currently they are in two separate locations. So really capitalizing on having everyone together and able to collaborate and work together very efficiently. So the view you see here is if you're entering on the north entrance. So this would be the view that customers and visitors would see as they're pulling into the building. One component, which Owens mentioned, was the trustee and training room. So there's a large conference meeting space for when they hold the trustee meetings. And that is the area, that space there that's in the brown color, which is a wood look siding. So that's kind of your entrance, kind of focal point to draw you into the site, and lots of glass, really nice space there. The rest of the building is clad in a metal panel, so the rest of the admin building is a neutral gray metal panel, and then the operations side is a vertical metal siding. If we go to the next slide, I think you can see that a little bit better. Yeah, so this is a closer view of that trustee training room, which has the wood look siding on it. And then maybe take a look at the next one. And then this view here is of the entrance of the building. So this is the main entrance where visitors and customers would come in. You can see the trustee training room there in the back, and then the admin building is the light gray panel, and then the dark gray is the operations side, which has the maintenance bays, the wash bay, and then the indoor covered parking area. And as Owen mentioned, the building is designed to be net zero. So we have a ground source heat pump geothermal system, which will provide the heating and cooling for the building. We'll be offsetting all of the electrical with a solar array, which will not be located on this site, but is planned to be located at the KWD's water treatment plant. And it will actually offset all the electrical for all of their buildings, right? That's what we're planning for, 80% of all of the, that's what we're planning for, TBT. Definitely enough to offset the electrical for this building and then some. So the plan is to not have to use any fossil fuels and have no utility bills. So we're pretty excited about that. And what else? Anything else you want to know about the? That's good. All right, I'll hand it back over to Owen.
The next slide I won't spend much time on because we already really talked about it. So we're here tonight for the site plan review. We appreciate that opportunity. The NRTA and the main DEP slot is in process. We're hoping to get that in the spring of this year. And then again, construction 2022 with occupancy and hopefully early 2023. Chris, next slide. And that concludes concludes our presentation unless Roger has any closing remarks he would like. Other than that, thank you, and if you have any questions,
Wonderful.
our whole team is here to answer them.
All right. Any questions from the board?
Hi,
Oh.
Samantha, I have some.
Okay, sorry, Bruce, I can't see anybody on the thing right now, so.
There we go.
There
Can
we
I
go.
put,
Yep,
I found the hand. If somebody else had one first, that's fine.
No, go ahead.
go
Bruce.
for it, Bruce.
Yeah. So, thank you for a great presentation. That's a beautiful building. It's fascinating, actually, and it seems like 145 years is a long time in one place, and hopefully they'll be there more than that in the new building once it gets approved. So thank you, and I know Mike Talbot, been there for a long time, so I'm sure that there's been a lot of thought put in this. Mike, I do have a couple of quick questions. You answered the one I usually ask on construction. Thank you. How about, do you have to get PUC approval in any way for a project like this, or not?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So we do have to receive Public Utilities Commission approval for any borrow-in that we do. So if we're going to take a loan, and which we will, obviously, for this facility. So we will be submitting the request for approval for issuance of securities with the Public Utilities Commission in the next couple of months on that.
Okay, thank you. And I assume it's you've obviously probably already crossed the T's and dotted the I's on that, but should be more of a formality, would you say?
Oh, we don't anticipate any problems with that. So
Right.
I don't know if it's a formality or not, but we had a meeting earlier.
Right.
Actually, last week we had a meeting with the PUC to discuss our application, and we don't anticipate any problems with that.
Right, good. I figured there must be some process on that. I just want to clarify. And I guess, I think people will ask. It's probably not our business really to micromanage this, but, ratepayers are going to like, oh, wow, you're building a new building. Do you see it as much of an impact on ratepayers, or?
Well, there's definitely an impact on ratepayers. I mean, this is a sizable building, and it is an investment for the next 100+ years for the district. So, I guess as far as in this meeting, I'm not ready to announce any kind of rate increase plans for that. I don't think that's the right venue for that. But obviously, the trustees have had discussions about rate increases during trustee meetings. So we are cognizant of the impact on ratepayers, but we feel like it's an investment that needs to happen, and now is the time to do it. It's not going to get cheaper to build a building down the road, and it also the maintenance and care of our equipment, the efficiency of our operation is going to improve because of that. Because right now we struggle with the limited facilities that we have of putting vehicles in heated storage and having to jockey things around to maintain our operation. This will be a much more efficient system for us.
Right, thank you, and I agree 100% with what you're saying. You got a good long-range plan. I'm just bringing that forward because a couple of people, once they saw the article, they have approached me and asked me. I just thought, obviously that's going to be, but it sounds like a great long-term investment, and I'm hopeful we accept it here tonight.
Thank you.
Okay. Dave, did you have?
Yeah, you had mentioned that in the original design there was a fence that is no longer in the design. Could you just clarify, was this a second fence? Is there still a fence around the building and the ponds? And
Yeah, so what we have is just gates on the entrances, so people will impede flow of traffic when we're not there, but we're not anticipating having a fenced perimeter around the facility that we had originally had that in initial design, we took that out as a cost savings, honestly, to reduce the cost of the project, because fencing is, as with everything, it's expensive.
Sure.
And we didn't feel like there was a benefit, although we certainly can add it in a future day without any issue. But at this point, we'd rather not install a fence around the whole facility until we determine at some point that it may be needed.
Okay. I'm trying to remember from the meeting back in May, I thought I remember there was some discussion around either fencing or screening or.
Yeah, we may have stated then that we were anticipating a fence, but
Yeah.
we've since removed that from the project as a cost savings measure.
Yeah, I don't know if anybody remembers.
I had asked a question about the fence. I was just concerned with safety around the
Right.
pools, the retention ponds. Those, I don't want someone to fall in.
Right. So, the retention pond, it'll have some water in it depending on how much it rains, and so there is, standing water periodically in a retention pond, but it's not intended to be a pond, so it'll just depend on weather conditions as to how long, how much water is in there and for how long. I don't know if Owens, you want to talk about what we anticipate there, but.
So these wet ponds are designed so that they do have a permanent pool elevation, because that's how that gets the treatment. There's a certain amount of water that stays in the pond, but we've graded the slopes so that it's not like a vertical slope. They're 3-to-1 slopes on the side. There's actually a bench in them. And what I've seen is sometimes we've fenced them, sometimes we haven't, and I just haven't seen any issues around them. When you see them built, they're not really a draw for anybody. We're kind of fortunate in this location too, because it's pretty far back off Drummond Avenue, and there's a wooded buffer in between us and the site, so it's not something that's readily discernible from the road. It'll be pretty well screened. I'm not even sure if anybody will see it. Maybe in the summer with in the winter with the leaves off, there might be some view into it, but for the most part, it won't be very visible. We just haven't experienced, I haven't, any really issues. I have some customers that, retail stores sometimes, that want to have them fenced in, and others that don't. But from a safety standpoint, we generally design them with a bench cut in and then a 3-to-1 slope, and really not so that somebody could get out of it if they went into it.
Nothing a child could fall into.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that if you see these ponds built, they're not they're not like a frog pond or something that would draw somebody's attention. They really have more of a functional look to them. They're not very from a kid wanting to get into them, they're not overly appealing.
Right. Is it a well-lit area if a kid was wandering through at night? I mean, not
there
having
is
a perimeter fence does change things a little bit, I think.
There is perimeter lighting around the inside of the site. Those lightings are dark skylight, basically, so it shines it down, but there's enough of ambient light that you would be able to see out into it. Again, if it became a safety issue, or we thought it was, they could have the option to fence it at that point.
I mean, if you travel Drummond Avenue right now, there's no sidewalk there. There's not really pedestrian-friendly area, so we don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. Across the street is a tow-in storage facility.
There are residences behind the perimeter of the structure. There are residences, right?
Oh, true. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, but they'd have to come across our property to get to that pond. Now,
Okay.
So certainly on the weekends or overnight, there is, that could happen, but
Map up again, yeah.
again, we don't have. I guess we'll see what happens.
Can you
but
point to the pool, just since we're talking about it? Okay, so that's where it is, and then the residences are on the side and behind. All right. And there's a wooded buffer behind it.
Right, it's not
Okay,
adjacent to
so-
anyone's
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
I mean, they'd
Yeah.
have to come
What's
a
the
ways.
blue structure in the back?
I'm sorry, say that again?
The blue, right there, yeah. What is that?
Oh, That's the decant hole, that completely drains out.
Okay.
That'll
Yeah.
never have much water in it, because it just drains those wet soils, like, I've gotta remove the sediments
Yep.
before it gravels on.
Okay.
so.
Okay. We have somebody online with a hand up?
That would be me. My name's John Dalzell. I live on Montcalm Street. I was hearing people talking about people who lived around the perimeter. I just have a quick question. We have a small field behind our house and then there's the wooded area that you're talking about developing. My question is, how much of a buffer is there going to be between the back of our field and these parking lots and buildings? That's all I have. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess that will depend on exactly where your property is. It's off the side. You can't see it here. So we don't have a view here of the a larger scale view out.
It's to the left, as far as where you're looking.
But there's a
Lemons here,
there's an existing city right-of-way called Reservoir Street that we won't be having any activity in. So there's that right-of-way there. That's a buffer in addition to any of their property that exists there. So, you know, we tried to be as far away from the edge of the property as we could, but still utilize the site for what we need to do. So Reservoir Street, that right-of-way won't be touched by it. We won't be occupying that at all. So there's that buffer. So depending on exactly where your home is in relation to the property, which I don't know now, but you can contact us at the Water District, contact me, and we can get into some real details with you if you'd like.
Just for a point of reference, is that Greenwood Street on the residences on the lower left hand of that image?
So this
Okay.
is Greenwood here, right, and then these are the residences here.
And then Central Avenue.
Montcalm's over here.
Okay. And approximately how far in feet or yards from the residences is it to the pool, the retention pond?
To this
Yeah,
part
how far are we talking here?
My buffer is basically going to be where Reservoir Street used to be, so I would expect everything that's there now will continue to be there.
I need to get my plan here so I can
Okay.
be accurate.
That's a good question.
It's pretty close.
I mean, I have kids.
300 or more feet to the pond. It's quite a ways, actually. The
Okay.
closest point would be here, and that's about 300 feet to the pond.
Are there any other questions from members of the public, Ally? Okay. All right. So I'm sorry, I have to have you come up to the mic. Thank you.
I'm Denise Dutel. I live at 26 Montcalm Street. I live at the very corner of Montcalm and Drummond Avenue. And where they're building, already the water that they have taken away, there was a swamp there. That water has made its way onto my property already. And the road isn't even all the way into the woods yet. And I know where John lives, so I'm assuming some of the water has come to his property as well. What do you folks plan to do about that?
So we came in off, we have a temporary road that we built in.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've been out there.
From Central Avenue, which for everyone's awareness. So we came in off Central Avenue through the right-of-way to build a temporary road in, so we could do a test well and test borings in there for the geothermal system as well as the geotechnical report. So what's there now is a limited view of what we will have, but we will eventually grade the whole site so that all the stormwater runs to the stormwater retention pond. So I don't know exactly what's happening on the site right now, but yeah, I'm sure you do. But my point is that we haven't built the site, we haven't graded the site, but we will be, and we'll have stormwater catch basins, as Owen's described, that will direct the stormwater flow towards the retention pond and not off-site, off to neighbors.
Okay. That was my concern coming here tonight. The water that is like I said, there was a swamp out there when they built that road in there. Now the swamp is gone, where did that water go? Well, a lot of it came our way on Montcalm Street, and it still sits there. So, my concern is, what are you going to do about it?
It's helpful. All of the water on our site gets collected, and it gets conveyed over to this pond here, and the outlet is down here towards the culvert at Drummond Avenue. So we're actually taking this water and moving it, we're detaining it, holding it, treating it, and then it'll discharge down to here into this wooded wetland area across the street. And that water runs, I think, back around like this on the site. So we're taking this, which I think you're saying you're right here.
Yes, that is me right there.
So any water that is over here in this area isn't going your way. We're actually taking it.
Well, eventually, I'm sure it will get that way, but right now, it's coming my way, and I'm sure it's coming John's way as well. So that was my concern. Okay?
Thank you.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments on Zoom, in person? Any last board discussion? Okay. Well,
Hillary has a hand up.
oh, Hillary.
I just wanted to clarify, because it sounds like there's some questions about whether there needs to be a fence or not, whether there's a chance that children could get, injured or drown. How deep is that water? Whether it's something that entices children or not, how deep is it?
Bear with me while I grab the grading plan, but it's accurate.
Somebody drowned in a tent. Is there security? There's no fence.
So the pond has the pond has a permanent pool elevation of elevation 131, and the bottom of the pond is 125, so a maximum of 5 to 6 feet in the pond.
Okay, so if somebody were putting a swimming pool of that depth in their yard, they would be required to put a fence around it. Is that right, Anne?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm kind of asking myself why we're not talking about the same thing here.
Well, this isn't open to the public or inviting for the public to come in. I appreciate and I certainly understand the concerns around that. It's riprap around the edge of the pool, so where the permanent pool is, it's angular riprap around it, so it's not something that is easy for somebody that would come over and wade down into it. There's a flat bench on the, when I say a bench, a flat area 10 feet wide up on top, and then it goes down into the pool. It's just not a very attractive thing for kids or anybody to come in, and we've purposely put it into the site close to the operations area.
Is there security? If there's no fence, is there security that keeps an eye on that? I don't think this is not crazy. These aren't crazy questions. Like, teenagers are, I'm not even thinking about little kids.
Yeah, so we do have, we do plan on having security cameras on the property. But, I think if, based upon the feedback here from the committee, we'll look to evaluate a fence around that.
I think
that would be-
Yeah, because that was my next question. I wasn't thinking so much then next, I was thinking about teenagers.
Yeah, like,
I think anything that's that deep that isn't locked up is incredibly enticing. Off hours when everyone has gone home. That's what I'm thinking.
absolutely.
Right.
And I think because there's a fence on the plan that I saw, that this is valid discussion. Like,
Absolutely. Yep. We can look at that and figure out how the fencing would work there.
Bruce.
Yeah, thanks. So to clarify then, we're just maybe recommending they put a fence around that pond part of it, not the whole perimeter, correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
Yes.
there
I
must
think
be a
that's what
law.
I would
I mean,
recommend.
I'll say for what it's worth, when we get to that part, I'm going to be making a motion to make that a condition, to have a fence around the pool. So,
Yeah.
we're just not there yet.
There are laws that apply to residential areas that have 5-foot deep pools, right, of water. And there's water always in that pool or not. I mean, even if it isn't, forget about it. Forget I even said that.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Good.
Are there
I just
laws?
wanted to
Do
clear-
we want to see if there's a
Thank you.
law
I just
for
wanted to
resident-
clarify
like
that.
commercial pools?
Thank you.
There must be precedent.
I don't know, Ann, do you know anything about rules regarding pools and such?
Commercial, like.
Is there anything in the
commercial.
ordinance?
No,
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
not in the
requirement in the ordinance. I was
Okay.
just wondering, the Mitchell School drains into a pool there, and I don't think there's a fence on that.
Yeah,
right?
there is.
Definitely a
There
fence.
There's a very high fence.
Absolutely. It's a tall fence.
Yep.
Yeah,
So, there you go.
okay.
Okay. Well, we can move on to findings and facts.
I'd like to make a motion to read the findings and facts by number only.
Oh my gosh, I will very happily second that motion. We'll do a quick roll call. Bruce? Thank you. Hillary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Cassie?
Yes.
Sounds good. Okay, so Roger, I assume you've been able to look at the findings and facts. So number 1, true or false?
Okay, I've got to go get my paper.
Okay.
I have a copy right here.
I know, he really threw you for a loop.
Yeah, sorry about that.
This has to do with floodplain zoning, true.
Okay, number 2. This is water.
Yeah, I'd say that's true.
Yeah. Number 3.
True,
Number 4.
true,
Number 5.
true,
Number 6.
true, yeah,
7.
true,
8.
true,
9.
true.
And then the conditions that are currently on there regarding the sanitary system, and that you'll have to pay the connection fee, obviously. All work must be performed in accordance to district requirements, including air testing and sanitary service. Developer or contractor must notify Waterville Sanitary District at least 48 hours prior to connecting to the system. And storm drainage system, which we have been talking about. And you must get a letter of approval from the fire chief. And so this is,
This is the schools.
and can we add a condition
Oh,
like
yes,
that?
absolutely.
Okay.
This, what you have is just a draft of a beginning, so you can add whatever
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to add a fence around that large pool.
I'll second the motion.
Do you want to put any sizes on the fence?
I think 6 foot would be
A 6-foot
sufficient.
fence? Okay. So we'll do a quick, any discussion about David's motion to add a fence? Okay, we'll do a quick roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And
Yes.
Cassie?
Yes.
Okay. So, any other questions?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to accept the findings and facts with
I'll
the,
move that.
thank you, Bruce.
Second.
Hillary seconded. We'll do a roll call. Bruce?
Yes.
Hillary?
Yes.
April?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom?
Yes.
And Cassie?
Yes.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right.
you.
Thanks so much.
one that I've handed?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Can we get the other one back?
Right here.
It's right here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, moving on to the last item on the agenda. Discussion only, the City Council Resolution 239, 2021. That resolution directs the planning board to provide a recommendation concerning and allowing stadium lighting at Drummond Field. Okay. Thank you.
Is there anyone from the school district on the meeting?
No one on the meeting? Okay.
What's that?
Okay, so, from my understanding and from the information that you sent us, the appropriate place for this discussion would be the zoning board of appeals?
Well, I sent the planning board information about what triggers site plan review by the
Yep.
planning board, and this does not trigger site plan review by the planning board. The only review that I could imagine is lighting. There's a requirement that lighting be directed onto the property and not spill onto abutting properties.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know if it's possible to light the field without spilling onto other properties. If it isn't, then this lighting of the field would require a variance, because the lighting requirement is in the zoning ordinance, and the planning board has no authority to waive requirements in the zoning ordinance. So that would have to go to the zoning board of appeals. And I spoke with the city solicitor about who has standing to go to the zoning board of appeals on this project. And so although the city owns the property, the school department is the body that has that authority by state statute. So it would only be the school department, not a group of boosters, that would have standing to go to the zoning board of appeals.
Okay. Dave?
So I've talked with multiple people about this. I wrote some notes here that I'd like to read through. So this was discussed back on November 16th at I believe at City Council, and on November 20th I ran into Brian Laramie, who's the principal at the high school, and asked him about his opinion on this, and he said he was unaware that this was being discussed, and he recommended that I speak with Eric Haley, the superintendent. I spoke with Eric on the 22nd of November. He was also unaware and said that and there was a school board that meeting that night, and I asked him if he was going to bring it up, and he said no. He also said that in his opinion, him and Mr. Laramie would probably not be in favor of this if it were brought to them through the proper channels. I spoke with Marianne Bernier. She's, what's that?
Did he say what?
No.
Okay.
I spoke with Marianne Bernier. She's my school board member. She agreed that this should be talked about at the school board, and she agreed to bring it up at the next meeting, which she did on December 13th. And when she did, Eric Haley said that he didn't want to talk about it, that the person who wanted the lights should have brought it to the school board and not through the way that he did. I do want to point out that the school district was CC'd on this agenda. They knew that we were going to be talking about this tonight. And on January 7th, I spoke with Matt Vaughn. He was the creator of the petition. I gave him the advice that he should go to the school board, which he did last night. And he was told that in order to get this talked about at the school board, that he needed to go to the athletic director, who would then bring it to the principal, who would then bring it to the superintendent, and if all of them agreed that it is something worth talking about, they would talk about it at the school board. So I really just wanted to let people know that that's the reason that it ended up with us, in my opinion, is because the school board is unwilling, or people at the school, in the school district, are really not willing to talk about it. And unfortunately, that's why it ended up with us, in my opinion. So.
Okay. Bruce?
Thank you for doing that.
Thank you, David, for the detailed dates. That is impressive. Thanks very much. So on November 16th, you said it was at the council meeting. Was that Matt Vaughn that approached the council?
I believe we might want to have Jay come up and speak.
That'd be great if Jay is there. I'm just
Mr.
trying
Mayor?
to figure out
He's coming up now.
how we got to the council and how they decided it should come to us. Would be great to,
Okay. Mr. Mayor, would you like to address that? You've been called.
I want to thank David, because we've had David and I have had a lot of conversations about this, and the resident who brought this to me brought it with well over 50 signatures on it. We got it in less. You got the signatures literally at one game, in a matter of like an hour and a half. So we had over 50 signatures. He brought it to my office. I brought it to the city council. I don't make decisions, the city council does. City council voted to send it to you guys to have that discussion. Part of the reason is, and the history over this is, over the last 20 some years, people have talked about maybe putting lights, maybe not putting lights. No one ever has an answer on why they couldn't do it. So I looked at it, and from a city standpoint, there really wasn't a reason why we wouldn't let them do it. So then it really became on the schools. And as David pointed out, you go to the athletic director, then you go to the principal, and then if they agree, they'll go to the superintendent. How odd is that you would go to the person that doesn't make a decision, to then go to somebody else who doesn't make a decision, to then go to someone else who still can't make the decision, has to go in front of a board, a school board that is elected, much like our city council is. And really, they're the ones that should be bringing things up. There's no direct path from the city standpoint to send any sort of discussion item to the school. Can you send anything to the school when you want to talk to them? Probably not. Yet they can send stuff to the city, we can send it to you for you to discuss, and then it goes back. Today, not one single member of the school district was here to talk about a building that they want to put up. It doesn't make any sense. A school board member brought up the issue of the lights. They should have discussed it. Any counselor can put something on the agenda. School board members are elected. They're the ones who represent us. They should also have the ability to put something on their agenda. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, we don't have the authority over the school board though, Jay, so I guess it would be an ordinance or a charter issue, is what this sounds like, not a.
So that was why most of it, so that we couldn't have that discussion on our own at the city level. So we had to sort of bat it to somebody else who could sort of discuss it also. You're right, it may take some sort of charter discussion, it may take some sort of zoning ordinance, but if we're not having this discussion, then the discussion isn't happening at all anywhere else. I mean, how weird is that? That we can't do that sort of thing. My school board member thinks that they've talked about this months ago. I can't find it on their agenda anywhere. And I don't expect you to be able to do anything. What I really wanted this board to be able to do is send the city some sort of, hey, we have no authority, but these are the channels that you can go down if you want to. Because we don't have all of that information, and we can't readily get that information. I am the mayor of this city. If somebody wants to FOIA my email from me to the school board or to the school district, they should, and see how many responses I have gotten back. And I'm the mayor of this city. Imagine a single parent emailing the school, and what kind of response do you think that they're getting? I know, again, it has nothing to do with this board, but this is the frustration that residents feel. If you're a resident and you bring me something that you want to discuss, and I tell you to go see somebody else before I'll talk to you about it, fire me. That just doesn't make any sense. A administrator like Eric works for the school board. The school board is elected. They don't work for Eric. They don't work for the school department. The department works for them. Very much like the city council. Our city manager works for the council. It makes no sense that our school isn't being run that way. And if we weren't able to have this loud public discussion, nobody would be talking about it. And I have spent the entire time I've been doing anything in the city trying to get the schools more money. Cassie and I have sent hundreds of cookies to teachers throughout the entire school district over the last week. We care about our teachers. We think they're underpaid. There's things that our school board should be doing. There should be different sorts of remote learning options for parents that don't want to send their kids to school. We don't have that. It's 2022. How is it that we can all do it here, but we can't provide that for the families who send their kids to our school?
I mean, I completely, believe me, you're speaking to the choir.
I get it. I'm sorry.
Many years. But like, I just don't know. It's not really relevant to what we can do. Did you go to the school board meeting yesterday?
I
you
did.
able to speak?
So I didn't. I listened because the moment that the resident who brought the petition to us in the first place got up to speak, the superintendent didn't even look at his direction. He essentially looked at the board and told them what his answer was, and then they recalled it back to the resident.
I mean, I don't want this to be getting into like a.
It shouldn't be.
Picking on the school board or the.
I'm not picking on the school board at all. I love them.
We're like completely off topic here.
I get that.
You know.
The frustration comes from the fact that there's no chain of command.
Well, and I understand the frustration, but.
So somebody has to address
So
it though.
help us.
Well,
But we can make a recommendation.
Yeah, we can make a recommendation based off of this that, I mean, Ann has explained what the zoning ordinance says, right?
So
if the lighting, there's a lighting ordinance,
Yep.
right? And the lighting ordinance says that if it doesn't spill off of the property, it doesn't require a site plan review, right?
Yep.
So that's, I feel like that's probably impossible knowing the area that it is.
Really, I don't think it's that impossible. There should be ways to build those lights in to where they only reflect on the field. I mean, in this day and age, we sort of can do it.
Some of those homes are incredibly close to that field, though, you know?
I get that.
And then the other option is going to the zoning board of appeals, right? Not.
Which we won't be able to do. We have to get through the school.
The planning board has, the school board has to do it. So, April's had her hand up for a little bit, so I'm gonna have her go.
Hi, April.
You're muted.
I know, there we are. So I'm trying to kind of understand how this situation is working. So and I can't guess at anybody's motivation, so I'm just gonna ask the question, who ultimately foots the bill for the lights?
So,
I mean, I know that's not really our purview. It doesn't, that has nothing to do with us. I'm just asking the question. Do we know how that's funded?
Yes, I'm actually glad you asked that because it's the boosters themselves that want to fundraise and pay for the entire, it will cost the school district $0. It will cost them absolutely nothing. The boosters and everyone involved will fundraise for those lights. And we are talking about 3, maybe 4 games a year at most. It's not like there's gonna be a lot of games out there. We already pay the boosters pay something like a couple grand a year just to borrow lights for one game.
But there are lights that are brought in.
Yeah, they bring in lights
They
every
rent
year
them
for
every
one
year.
game.
Right.
And we're saying that to build community, to build a sense of community, having some night games on a Friday night where the entire community shows up and drinks hot coffee and they watch this game,
Where we don't have to rent the lights.
where we don't have to rent the
Right.
lights. I mean, and again, I'm just looking for a recommendation. I didn't put the petition in, but I see the frustration because we don't know who to go to. Like, there's no direct path to the school board. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, I understand the frustration for sure. Cassie, did you have?
No.
Okay.
I think what I wanted to mention was that we do, like, as far as the lights spilling, like, there are lights that are rented. The houses around there are used to lights being there already. They're just rented lights, so they're not permanent, maybe not, the ordinances aren't applicable to rented lights, but
That
the
still
precedent
exists, yeah.
is there.
Yep, there is precedence. And again, I don't mean to tie up your time on a Tuesday night. You guys could have already left. We just had this, as a city, we had nowhere else to send it. Like, somebody brought us a petition.
Samantha, I have my hand raised.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Okay, Hillary.
So a couple of things. So I appreciate the frustration, but I think what Samantha's trying to say, and I fully agree, your frustration, while totally justified, if you're writing emails and not getting responses, it isn't our purview. And so I really don't want to spend more time talking about that. And I don't want you to think that I don't empathize. I really do. I just think we need to do the business of the planning board so that we're not creating tension between different boards within the city. I think that's really unfair. And I don't think that's the place to do this. The other thing, and I'm so sorry to do this, Cassie, I think you said at the outset that this could pose a conflict, and I'm not sure that I understood completely, and so I need to ask to clarify, for you to clarify this again. Did you say that you were one of the people who signed the petition?
Yes, I signed the petition. My name's on it. If you read the petition, you would see my name.
Yeah. Okay. So in that case, I think you would have to recuse yourself on anything that you're voting on with regard to this.
That's fine. If everybody else agrees, I'm fine with that.
I mean, conflict of interest means monetary gain, so there's no conflict.
Okay. Fair enough. Good enough then. That's fine. Yeah, I personally don't see how the lights could be done in a way that they're not spilling over. I mean, we spend so much time at the track. We're not there for football. We spend so much time at the track. I think I've been there for an evening game. I don't know how they could be set up so that they're not spilling over onto someone else's property. I just don't know how that could be done. And if there's a way to do it, that would be great. But that's where I feel like it needs to be sent to someone else who could ascertain that.
Dave and then Bruce.
I am actually going to say I would like to make a motion to make a recommendation that the city council look for ways to, I guess, come up with a means for sending things to the school board to get on their agenda. That's my motion for making a recommendation back to city council.
Okay, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we will vote. Any further discussion?
Can I get,
The council.
yeah, clarification?
Yeah, what, the council,
My recommendation is for the council to work with the city solicitor to come up with, I guess, a method for the city being able to send things to the school board to get on their agenda that the city wants.
I guess I don't understand why we have
be
to send
discussed.
that motion to the council. It should
Because
just be
the
something that they're doing.
city asked us for a recommendation.
Right. That's all right.
That's my recommendation.
That doesn't already exist.
But that,
you're kidding.
The city can just create it.
So that's why it's
They
here.
can just write an ordinance, like, it's,
Right.
I don't understand why you had to come to us for us to tell you that there's a lack of communication between the,
I'll be honest, I couldn't find, and we asked questions, who, until recently, when Ann came up with it, because she asked Bill Lee, on who could even ask for the lights. I mean, it's that sort of convoluted that we don't, somebody had to have that discussion. We tried to have it. We did the part we could with the petition.
right,
One-
no, I understand, but the reason is because the people in charge of the land are the people that bring the issue, not petition holders. Like, I can't make a petition that Dave does something with his house. Like, it's, Dave brings his plan to me, to the planning board, and we make a decision. Like,
Agreed.
it has to be the landowner, right? So,
Well, but who owns the
But-
school property?
So but that's the gray
school
area.
is in charge of the
No,
school
And
property.
No,
My-
the city solicitor said the owner of the property
city.
isn't the point, it's the city. By state statute, the school department controls the use of that property.
Okay.
Yeah. Which is why my recommendation has absolutely nothing to do with lights at a football field.
I mean, but you have just as much access to Bill Lee as Ann does, or I do, and every counselor has the same access as well. So, to say no one could find the answers when Ann did just by asking him, right? You know what I mean? There are other ways. Bruce,
Yeah, well, two questions, I guess. The motion, that's separate from this specific issue, really. We can still continue our discussion on this after we vote on the motion.
I mean, all we were asked to do was make a recommendation.
Okay, so, and,
well, it's a
Yeah,
discussion
just kind of-
question anyways. I don't
Yeah.
know that we have a vote today. But
okay, so the other thing is regarding the lights, I mean, I do think that we face this on other projects. It's not just the football field. When a business comes in town, has a parking lot, they want to put lights. Matter of fact, I think there've been at least 2 credit unions I'm aware of that, did lighted parking lots. We, require, like Ann said, there's certain lighting that's required. There are neighbors in that area. So I don't think the football field will be much different, that it can be addressed with the type of lighting. So I don't think it rules it out completely.
right, but in order to do that, they have to go to the zoning board of appeals, not to us, to get a change of.
I guess
use.
we've had issues like that on projects, but yeah, I guess
Well,
we'll
I know,
figure that out.
but
But
we were talking about
Yeah,
a current development that was being developed. So this is a different situation
Right.
because it's something that already exists and they're wanting to add to it.
And it's not the
Okay, right.
custodian of the property asking us.
And it's not the custodian of the
Right.
property that's,
exactly, if the board, I mean, obviously, I think we all feel it's unfortunate that this isn't being discussed by the school board first. That is probably the most important thing here that should be, and hopefully they hear us and they will address it sooner or later, because I think that's where it should be discussed, and let's hope that somebody gets a message.
yeah.
Thank you.
It seems, I mean, can we just write a memo, Ann, that says, you're gonna need, in order to put up the lights, it would appear that you have to get a zoning variance from the zoning board of appeals.
They know that because I've already communicated
To the
this
counselor?
information
Okay.
to the.
Yeah, so, I mean, I guess that's the way forward, right? And we can't.
Or
force
could we
anybody.
recommend in any way, just in a memo, that this at least be addressed at the school board?
No.
I'm not saying by motion, just a memo saying we've had discussion, it came to us.
I suppose
We
you
don't-
could reach
we
out to your
think it-
school board.
We think it,
rep.
we believe it came to the wrong place. We think it should go to the school board for a good discussion. Why not? What do we?
Because
Maybe
that
the
doesn't fall
council
under
should
the
have done
planning
that.
board.
Right.
As a private
It's a memo.
citizen, you can do that.
You can reach
Memo.
out to
And I will as a private citizen.
to your school board rep,
Okay.
member.
Well, hopefully they listen to this, or maybe there'll be some news about it. So, but thank you again, David, for the details, and thank you, Jay, for your information that you shared.
What?
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
I want to thank you all. I really didn't want to waste your time. And I don't want to talk about any of the boards. I appreciate the opportunity to show that, at least to people who are interested, that this is not a city-side issue. We are not trying to stop them from being able to do something. So now it really sort of publicly goes out to where it's supposed to go. I knew when this came to me, it was going to be a challenge, but I also knew that it had to be publicly spoken about, and that is the main reason why it showed up here. And I understand that that really isn't the proper course, but it gave the entire city, the planning board, members that are appointed and elected, an opportunity to sort of cross dialogue and figure out at least some sort of solutions. I know that you're not gonna be able to give us one, and the city's gonna have to figure one out, but we've done what we can for our side of the dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, I completely understand the frustration. I just don't
I
know.
think that, and it's better to have this discussion than to just keep passing it off and passing it off.
Well, that was it. I've been hearing about this for a decade. I'm done listening to it. Now it's not in my hands. It's not that we don't want to do it. Go talk to your school board members.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, you can give people specific information, right? Like, in order, like you have to go, they're gonna have to go to the zoning board of appeals, like, you need a variance, and then they know exactly what to ask for, right?
And that was it. And that was mostly what the boosters were looking for, is that they've been getting the runaround for so long that there was no solid answer. At least now that we've discussed this a couple of times, they're like, oh, well, now I know I got to go do this. Now I know I got to. They were never readily given that information.
Yeah.
And you guys have helped us give it to them. So I appreciate that.
Thanks, Mayor Jay.
It does seem like it would be a pretty simple solution to just have someone be able to go in front of the zoning board of appeals, but thus here we are.
And that was it. And that was the major concern, was really for the boosters to find out if there was an ordinance or something precluding them from being able to have lights in the first place. And it seems that there is nothing that precludes them from having it other than taking a few steps. So that is like a decade of movement in a matter of 2 weeks. So I appreciate you all.
So we do have a motion on the floor, that we should vote on, I guess. So I'll do unless there's.
Repeat the motion.
Yeah, can we repeat the motion?
Sure. So I'll just say, item number 5 was, the city council directed the planning board to provide a recommendation concerning allowing stadium lighting. And my recommendation, based on all of the conversations that I've had and witnessed other people having, was the recommendation for the city council to seek a method for sending items to the school board for them to discuss on their agenda. That's my motion for a recommendation.
So I guess, my question for Ann is that even within our purview to do that?
To make that recommendation.
It seems to me like that's a conversation the council needs to have with Bill Lee and zoning ordinances. I don't know if it's a charter change.
To be fair, city council sent this to us to ask for a recommendation. Like, whether it's in our purview or not. I mean, it's.
And it probably wasn't in their purview to send it to us.
It wasn't, no.
So.
It absolutely wasn't.
Right. So, but yet here we are. So,
Okay, I guess we'll
Well,
take a
can
vote.
I-
Yeah, go ahead, Bruce.
Can I mean, if it was specific to this motion, David, I would support it, but this is kind of broad, and I do believe it's out of our, realm of our responsibility. I do think it should be addressed, don't get me wrong, and I think, I think there's certainly, it sounds like a communication problem and a process problem. I'm not sure which or all, but I think it's too broad of a motion. I think it would have to be specific to this matter only.
Hillary. Hillary.
So Bruce, are you saying you think it should be more direct in terms of that what they've asked for our recommendation is something that we can't give, that this needs to be referred to the zoning board? Is that what you think we should respond with, Bruce?
Could I?
Well, I
Yes.
think it has to be specific to what we're talking about. I don't know who would get it. I
Okay.
don't know that it should be zoning, but I think it should be specific to what we're discussing.
Ann has
everything.
a clarification.
Yeah, you don't want to be sending this to the zoning board until you know that the lights can't be put in without spilling onto the abutting properties. You'd only go to the
Right, but I
zoning
mean,
board
we
to
would-
ask for a variance.
Right, so I'm saying an explanation to something of that effect that explains that precisely.
Well, we've already communicated that to the city council, though.
does it make more sense to recommend that the petitioners take this back to the proper channels? That our recommendation is to take it back to the proper channels, and also in the process, investigate whether there are lights that exist that can prevent spilling on to the abutting properties? Does that make more,
I don't think
like,
the
more of a
planning
sense?
board has the preview to recommend private citizens do something
All right.
that
Then-
didn't even ask us a question, they're not even here. So,
Okay. So what's the
mean-
option, Sam?
I don't think that we really need to do anything,
All right,
personally. I think we've already communicated to the city council the answer, that it's not ours, but, Ann?
Samantha, we haven't communicated that. I mean, we've talked
Ann-
about it, but we actually
No,
have to come up with a
Ann
response
has,
to them,
I'm
right?
looking at an email from
Oh,
Ann
I'm
that-
sorry. Okay.
I'm looking
Okay.
at an email from Ann that has all of the information, and all of the city councilors are copied on it with Bill Lee.
Oh, I
Okay,
didn't.
so I'm saying in terms of the
Really?
planning board responding to what was on our agenda tonight, that's what I mean.
I think what she's saying is that Ann may have responded, but the planning board itself has not responded.
Right, and I said, should we issue a memo that has all of this, and everybody said no, so I don't know.
Well, when did we say that? I wasn't here for that, was I?
I said it like 20 minutes ago, 3 discussions about lights and school boards ago.
Okay. Well, that.
And that's what I was just agreeing with Samantha,
Yeah.
suggesting to Bruce that shouldn't we do just that? So I still agree with you, Samantha.
Well, we still
and-
have Dave's motion on the table,
Yep.
so.
That,
Yep, so
that
I'm
can
gonna
be
withdraw.
amended.
I'm actually gonna withdraw it, David, because I'm sorry. I agree with Bruce on this. I think we should just address what city council asked us to address. So Samantha, if you want to come up with a motion to sort of summarize what you said, I would agree with that.
Okay, so, Ann, is it possible to just send the city council an official, memo that lists
Explaining what I
Explaining
explained
what you-
already, but it's
yeah.
coming from the planning board.
coming from
Certainly.
the planning board, and
Yeah.
I can sign it if I need to,
Yeah,
or
okay.
whatever. Okay, so I make a motion that the planning board issue a memo to the council explaining about the zoning ordinance and the variance needed from the zoning board of appeals, and what that process looks like.
Seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? All right, Bruce.
Yes.
Okay, April.
Yes.
Hillary.
Yes.
Dave.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Tom.
Yes.
And Cassie.
Yes.
Okay. There
Thank
we
you
go.
all.
we went like this to get to there.
We've been doing it for a long time. It's crazy.
There's a lot of people who have had a lot more circular conversations leading up to this, so.
Motion
We
to
cut through it.
adjourn.
I appreciate all of you. Thank you.
Second. All right. Have a great night, everybody. Stay warm.
Good night.
Oh, so just so you
Thank
all
you.
know,
Oh, sorry, hold on.
our next meeting is the 25th.
2 weeks from today.
Yes, and Bruce always asks what's on the agenda. Would you like to know, Bruce?
Sure.
Okay.
It's always helpful.
Colby College is requesting informal pre-application review for 4 10,000 square foot dormitories to be constructed on Pond Drive. And Ware Butler is requesting rezoning for 2 parcels on North Street.
Will be fun.
Okay.
Rezoning, that's always fun.
Yeah, it's gonna be
Right?
really
Not
fun.
contract zoning, though.
It doesn't matter. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
Thank you, everybody.